consult number 5.
5.
Gee, we're on week 5 already. So yeah, well, so hello everyone. We've got a bit of a smaller crew, but that's okay. The Zoom recordings are always watched and talked about. So
Firstly, apologies for the message that went out with the misspelling on
the subject
line.
Yeah, that might have been me.
Yeah.
Yeah, missed that one on my end. That's okay. Moving right along. Thanks for pointing that out, dear.
That's okay.
Good. So tonight we're going to have a chat about pastas, lentil pastas in particular, and what all that means.
Yep.
Then we're going to talk about an AI meal planner recipe that we just cooked, and it was pretty good. So we're pretty happy with that. So we're going to talk about that one very quickly, the Zen Garden Omelette. And tonight's theme is really about reset to a degree. So we found in the last Metabolic Vitality, and we've also seen in this Metabolic Vitality that resets need to happen at about this stage. So we're finding that
not necessarily need to.
Yeah, I guess. Well, hang on. It's time for me to confess. I need to reset. Because I didn't drink my hot water, which
I did
not going to drink, but you can give a report on that. But I need to reset. So I've been okay. We live by the principles of metabolic balance, but yes, I need to come home hard in these next 3 weeks. So reset is the theme tonight, and so we're going to be talking a little bit about that. That's going to incorporate things like that all or nothing thinking we've been talking about, which essentially is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Basically, I guess, do what is right, do what is generally right. Don't go after these pointed goals. Got some other thinking around start with the end in mind, and micro goals is also something that I'm thinking there. And then also when things don't go to plan, what can you do? So talking more about that. And I think a little bit of exercise in there, no doubt we'll pass across to Sarah. Also a quick little disclaimer. For some reason, our apartment, the electricity's been tripping for some reason. I did some not rewiring, that sounds a bit, I'm not an electrician. So I made cables look nice and things like that. And now the apartment's tripping. Good on me, which means we could lose our internet. And if we do, Sarah's got the hot seat. But we'll jump back in. I'll hotspot in and we'll make sure everything's going to go to plan there. So welcome everybody, and get any questions prepped as we go. And this is interactive, but like I said, turn your phones, your video off if you're happy doing that. If you're happy to have a meal, Jane's eating away there. We've literally just we would have, but we talk a lot, so it's difficult for us. Our meals will go cold. Definitely do have a cheeky little decaf coffee there on the ready. And so, yeah, let's rock and roll, dear. So pasta.
Okay, so this gets brought up quite a lot with MB and the introduction of pastas, when to introduce pastas, and the types of pastas that are available. Now, a lot of people have pulses on their menu plan. I'd say around 90 to 95% of people do have pulses as a protein source on their plan. My recommendation is that any of the pulse pastas are not introduced until, say, 4 to 6 weeks into your plan. And the reason being is they are still processed. Even if it is just processing down a lentil or processing down a chickpea and then binding it together with water to make that pasta, it does go through an element of processing. And in the initial stage, we really want to avoid those processed foods. However, saying that, once we've kind of done that reset, once we're starting to get into the groove, we're starting to feel well, we're starting to feel that energy come back, we're seeing the results, then I'm okay for those sort of pulse pastas to come back in if they are on your plan. So the red lentil pasta, the chickpea pasta, they're the main ones. And the best advice I can give with weighing is that it would be the dry weight of the pulse. So if you had 65 grams of lentils, or 65 grams of chickpeas dried, then that's the weight that you use with that pasta.
Say that again.
So if it's 65 grams of dried pulses, so 65 grams of dried red lentils,
Yep.
your portion size would be 65 grams of the dried pasta.
Right.
Because essentially, from what I've seen of, and there's a few brands out, and I even noticed that San Remo were doing a red lentil pasta. There's a few brands out, but the ingredients that I have looked at have really just been the pulse.
Oh, okay.
So once, however, you hit phase 3 and 4, then I'm more open to looking at other pastas. So there's also a brown rice pasta. There is an edamame pasta. All of those kind of things. Then happy once we kind of hit that stage of being in the next phase of reintroducing carbohydrates and grains and things like that, then they should come in. Once you're at phase 3 and 4, my guidance is that a pasta, if you are bringing it in, so if it is like a brown rice pasta or an edamame pasta or something like that, it should accompany your food. So you should still have protein, you should still have vegetables on your plate and the pasta. Don't replace one of the protein or the veggies with that pasta. Use it as an addition to your plate. And obviously be mindful portion size and things like that. I am not a fan of store-bought gluten-free pasta. And the reason being is the additives, the preservatives, the high processing that goes on with a typical gluten-free pasta. So I always go back to a whole food made into a pasta. Example, red lentils, chickpeas, edamame, those kind of things. Wheat pasta. The wheat is what we've been avoiding. So we have been eating, if you've got rye in your plan that does contain gluten, it's just not containing any wheat, and it is the wheat that can be highly inflammatory. So usually when we bring the wheat in, that's when we feel a little bit more bloated, a little bit more tired, don't sleep very well, bowel motions change, all of that kind of thing. But it's there to be enjoyed. So general advice, after about week sort of 4 to 6, you can bring in those pulse pastas and use your dried weight of the pulses that are on your plan. Obviously, if you don't have chickpeas on your plan, I would say don't bring in chickpea pasta. Most people have lentils on their plan, and I would say a lot of people don't utilize lentils on their plan. So it's actually a good way to bring those in. But just remembering that is your protein source. So whatever you make to go on it is from your vegetables.
So recap, you're saying that you can have lentil pasta and that you wouldn't put that to your protein.
No, that is your protein.
That is your protein.
In weeks 4 to 6, when you're in phase 3 to 4,
Yep.
it's different. But when you're in that weeks 4 to 6, that is your protein that you're using as a pasta.
Okay. And then for the later phases, use it as a pasta and then add protein to that.
Yeah, you can add a little bit of protein.
So if you do that, does that then count towards your veg? Like, because you're still balancing if you're living
really balancing. Once you're in phase 3 to 4, you're not really weighing your foods. You're just being more mindful.
No, but do you then with your veg portion, like your protein might be X, you're still roughly weighing it in your mind. I mean,
so maybe reduce your veggies a little bit and add some pasta on the side.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. Jane, I don't know if I've caught you mid-mouthful, but
no, that's all right. Does
that answer your pasta?
It does, and what we did, we had a little. It was a real cheap meal because we had a couple of little other protein sources like anchovies and parmesan because it's
yes, which you said you had some sneakies.
Yeah, but we did actually treat it as the protein source.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool. And did you make the lentil pasta, or did you buy it in, or?
No, we bought it.
Bought it in, yeah. Was it a particular brand, or did you get it from?
Actually, we used chickpea pasta, and
chickpea. Sorry,
chickpea. Yeah, chickpea is on David's plan, but not on mine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's we bought it, and it was fine. You know, it
Yep.
was not as nice as ordinary pasta, but then
Yeah.
but perfectly acceptable.
Cool. Very, very good. Very good. So I think that ticks the pasta box. What do you reckon?
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think that's and any questions you've got. The other thing you can do while we're talking about the pulses, there is a recipe for turning red lentils into a wrap,
Mhm.
and it really is red lentils and water. I will find that recipe and I will post.
pretty
I think
sure it's
somebody's
on-
done that before. Is it on there?
Yeah,
Maybe.
might need to ask.
It's on there. It's
yeah,
in the
cool.
it's in the tag book. It's the
fairly
next
sure I
thing
put it on the
thing
other
I'm going to
tag.
make.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're pretty
Try
good.
that
They
one.
don't wrap that well.
they don't wrap
They
that well, but
kind of stay.
they're better than a rye wrap. A rye wrap tends to break a lot more.
Yeah, if you got to make it a bit
Yeah.
more moist, don't you? So probably take a little bit of experimentation, but yeah, we've had them a few times. Yeah,
Yeah.
that other red lentil
Mm.
dish that you do is really good, and that's just
Oh,
red.
the dal.
It's a dal, red lentil
Yeah.
dal. That's really nice, and that's a
Mm.
good one for lentils as well. Oh, very cool. Speaking of meals, tonight we cooked up an AI meal planner recipe, one that we would have never cooked. The AI meal planner called it a Zen garden omelette. The ingredients were eggs, celeriac, bok choy, and parsley and garlic. So basically, what was appealing about this one is some of the language that was used in the directions, which was quite hilarious. So I'll read the start of the directions. Based on the maximum flexibility of this recipe for creativity, an omelette innovatively combines earthy celeriac jelly with a vibrant bok choy. What is celeriac jelly? We didn't get our celeriac to jelly, but it's basically down here.
I think we
It was-
realized why they used the word jelly, because I think it was a rhyming part. Here we go. That bit there.
Yeah.
That's this bit.
Yeah. So preheat the skillet to a medium temperature, pour in the egg mixture, and promptly layer in the celeriac jelly to create a gradient of comfort of warmth within the belly. So AI is it's quite ingenious. And we'll also wrap it up with this little tail ending, which is MasterChef-esque. Serve this masterpiece alongside a balanced slice of whole grain rye toast and appreciate a nourishing journey through the passionate ups and peaceful dappled lows of this garden-inspired delicacy. Oh my. We've unleashed a bit of a beast, but so anyway, that's what drew us to that one. It was a cracker.
It was actually really nice.
Really, really
Mm.
just a very, we would have never put bok choy and celeriac together.
No.
And it wasn't a jelly. Like we basically steamed, well, we didn't do it. Jacob, Micah cooked it for us. Basically we steamed celeriac, had the bok choy and steamed that off, had everything cut up, and then just basically made this really great. It was more like a frittata.
I think you did just post it, didn't you?
I did put a picture up of it in the app. So along with your artwork, dear. So
Okay.
Karen did a lot of artwork on the weekend with Inspire Wellness logos and things like that. So very, very artsy weekend, dear. Well done. Looked awesome. So that's the meal planner we had was very successful. We've actually had quite a few, haven't we? So one of them was a crunchy chickpea salad, which was also very, very good. I think that might have featured in the last Metabolic Vitality, where you literally just put your weight of chickpeas in the air fryer and give it a good hit, and it turns out really crispy.
I'm pretty certain that Katrina made that one as well.
Yeah, so it's a real favourite of ours. So we do duck into that one from time to time. So that's the AI meal planner recipe of the week, which we are going to commit to keep doing because we're going to be using more and more of them. So back to the reset conversation.
Yep.
So for those who weren't on, I said I had a confession to make. I need to reset and will this next 3 weeks. Well, probably it's 4 weeks, isn't it, actually?
Which really started a question about what does reset mean?
Well, I think Andrea might have also raised that she wanted a bit of a, was Andrea? Yeah, she raised she wanted a bit of a reset moment herself as well. So part of why we're doing what we're doing, Metabolic Vitality, is not to beat ourselves up. It's really just to live our best life with everything else that goes on in life, right? So reset for me, we've talked about it, there's a few cards on it, all or nothing thinking, where basically it's like, oh no, I've dropped a few meals in a row, that's it. I'm out, I'm not going to do anything. Or then I chastise myself to say, no, I need to absolutely get strict and get on with it. Sort of. So that yo-yoing, I guess, that's common in most diet patterns, is what Vitality's trying to educate to avoid. It's a lifestyle, and we just need to do the best we can do, right? So basically, for me, a technique that works is there's a technique called starting with the end in mind. I think this is the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People fame, and really talks about starting with the end in mind. So for me, it's Monday. I want to, by Friday, have a look at my MV scores and know that I'm scoring 10 out of 10 most days. That's just my goal this week. That's what I'd like to achieve. And we've got a few late nights, or we've got several talks this week, including this one. And that's going to disrupt our normal Pilates session. So that's okay. We're going to roll with the punches and still get our movement in. And whether we do it in our home gym, or whether we get out and walk, or maybe tomorrow while we're in the practice, Karen, we might go out for a walk while we're at practice. So we're going to roll with the punches. We're going to get our eating right, because if you use the MV out of 10 score, the way we sort of do it is 8 out of 10 is your nutrition and a couple for movement. So that's how I like to think about it. And so basically, that's my goal, to run 9s or 10s all of this week and just make the right choices. So it's as simple as that. I'm not chastising myself, and look, I'm far from having fallen off any wagon. But for me, it's like, go easy on myself and just make it a better week this week.
And I think for me, because I had a bit of a think about the word reset, and a lot of people do contact me about doing a reset, and they mean going back to doing the 2-day cleanse and things like that. To me, that's not needed. What's needed is focus. So, and the best way to do that is planning. Make sure you've got a plan. Know what you are doing, not only with your food, but with your week, with events that are coming up, with social engagements, with exercise, anything that can take you out of your norm. If that's in your weekly planning as well, you're more likely to have a plan around that as well. Being prepared is definitely the key. We usually do our shopping on a Saturday morning. I think we posted that lots of times. This Saturday morning, we didn't do that. We actually...
There was no mangoes.
We went to the market and there was no mangoes. So that probably put us in a bad mood. So we left the markets pretty quickly. But what that meant is then we got home, we got into a few things, and we didn't do our grocery shopping. We did end up getting takeaway on Saturday night, and we made the right choice. Scott wanted to have fish and chips.
That was first.
That was first.
And I expressly said no grilled fish because I really want crumb fish. And then I sort of thought about it a bit more. And then we went on to gluten-free pizza, I think. That was my next.
Went on to gluten-free pizza. I didn't go on to gluten-free pizza.
I didn't eat these things. That's where I went next. So I was having some sort of self-sabotaging meltdown. And so
we ended up with Thai, and we had a Thai chicken salad, and we're
going to have to post the name of that Thai restaurant, because the Thai chicken salad it was
incredible, and it would have been
so fresh, and it was
incredibly close to a metabolic balance plan.
Really good.
So we made a choice that we would have the takeaway, because there was nothing in the house really, like we really didn't have anything.
Like most males in the world, I hate paying for delivery, so I got it delivered. Guess Karen booked it.
But we managed to kind of work around what we were doing and make the best choice at that time. And then Sunday, we set ourselves up for success. We went and did our grocery shopping on Sunday morning.
Early.
And we went early, got it all out of the way. So although our weekend didn't go to plan, we still managed to kind of fix that up.
And then we had our usual roast and meal prepared. So usually I cook a double amount or triple amount for roasts, and then that goes into the fridge, and then that's what we have lunch.
Yeah. So I guess my take from that is sometimes even with planning, things don't always go to plan, but it doesn't mean that you can't just pick up the next day and kind of start again. So it's not so much a reset, it's what do you need to do in that moment to set the focus back. Like Scott said, remember what the end goal is. And the end goal is vitality. For some people, it is a weight goal. For some people, it's an energy goal. For some people, it is just purely living your best life. And that's what we're doing. So have that in mind. And the other thing I would say is remember how good you can feel. I've had a lot of people that message and say, I need to do a reset. I need to get back on plan. I remember how good it makes me feel. If it makes you feel good, then do that. I know with Scott, when he said that he wanted the crumbed calamari and chips, I knew how that was going to make him feel. He had to make the decision to understand how that was going to make him feel, and then making the best choice around that.
Did help. There's no doubt about it that it, like, in that situation, like we ended up doing nothing. Like, it was kind of like, yeah, let's go grab that. And it was kind of like, just wait a little bit longer. so I was putting off what didn't become the inevitable, but yeah, maybe after that helped. So I don't know if that's a thing, but.
And I think in that choice, I think what we were probably more craving is having a meal that was different.
Yeah.
Using that treat meal as a takeaway, not wanting to leave the house. So we decided that we would order in, but then actually making a good choice when we did it.
Yeah.
And waking up the next morning going,
Yeah,
that was actually a really lovely meal, but we managed to kind of stick to what we were wanting to do.
That was a win. So yes.
So the whole reset kind of word, it's more just refocus. Like, yes, it's a reset, but it's really just a refocus and remembering all of the steps that you've learned along the way, right from the beginning, to then set yourself up for success, and remembering how good you feel. Because I certainly know myself, if I don't eat to plan a couple of days, I certainly notice it the next day or the day after and crave the foods that I know make me feel good. So
maybe Sarah Murphy, because there's two Sarahs on the line, it would be worth you. They'll talk about putting you on the hot spot. So yeah, what about yourself when it comes to, because you live a metabolic balance lifestyle generally?
Yeah.
How do you I guess reset I'll use that word, reset, refocus yourself?
Yeah. So definitely, like, you guys, like, kind of just thinking about like choices and how good you're going to feel. Like, do I really want this enough to feel pretty crappy the next day? That kind of thing. And kind of like, if you are really craving something, then is there like a healthier like alternative that you can kind of make out of your ingredients in your plan as well, so you're still kind of like satisfying that craving but making it like a better choice, with obviously better options. But then also, if things come out of hand, don't beat yourself up about it. I know I definitely used to, like, if something's out of your control and you eat something that's not even close to your plan or whatever, definitely getting to that negative headspace and thinking, oh my God, what have I done? I feel terrible, and that kind of thing. So kind of just like, cool, that happened, I'm just going to move on, and then just next day just get pretty strict back on plan again. But yeah, always coming back to that, how's this going to make me feel? So
interesting one.
Like you did, like taking a few minutes and thinking, is this really the right choice? Do I want to feel
I don't think I did that. I think it was kind of done for me, but yes, that was the principle. Yeah.
And I mean, also, like, if you are really craving that, then like, don't restrict yourself as well. Like, we don't, life happens and that thing and that kind of thing. And then, maybe the next day you might rethink your choice and think, I actually did make the wrong decision. So probably next time I will think about this again. And just, the main thing, like we said a few weeks ago, listening to your body, like that's really the most important thing as well.
And I think for us in that situation, the good thing was that I actually don't like pizza, so it was easy to steer the decision away.
What about crumb calamari?
No, I don't like that either.
Anyone else got any stories that perhaps how they refocus themselves, or maybe, now I know we got a lot of microphones off, and that's okay. You don't have to turn your mics on, but yeah.
Well, that was actually the point of the pasta puttanesca yesterday.
Yeah.
It was something we were both craving,
Yeah.
and there were some aspects of it that were not plan approved, but it wasn't too bad, really.
Yeah. And how'd you go the next day, Jane? Did you feel
Today feel good?
Yeah.
Feel good. Oh no, you've got to take into account that I had a crap meal on the plate last night. So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
not great, but
No.
I don't think it was the pasta. I think it was the horrible vegetable things. The loaded vegetable things
Something.
that I had. Yeah, awful.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I've moved on.
Yeah. It was interesting. The on one hand, casting yourself forward, 24 hours, how am I going to feel tomorrow? And I guess we could, a lot of us who maybe do indulge in alcohol could think like that. That might help. But then also though, that's cool. I need to, scratch that itch and basically go for it, sort of thing.
And I think
feel okay after that as well.
And a lot of that with those meals, it comes around that treat and cheat kind of wording. Like, treat yourself to good food. Like, even if it's not on your plan and you feel like you need it, like with the meal that you cooked, Jane, like the ingredients were beautiful. Amazing. They sounded really lovely, really nice food that your body will actually process it a lot better than if you had
Crumb calamari
or pizza. Your body would have probably kept you awake at night, and the next day you'd probably wake up pretty grumpy. So it's that decision in that moment. We knew for us that we were going to get something. So it was just making that right choice. And sometimes, I'm pretty certain that everybody feels this every now and again, sometimes you just don't want to cook a meal yourself.
Well, I guess that's the idea of the treat meal, right? And that's the whole use it. Don't just let it go by and just cook the whole time. Yeah, very good. We were going to talk a little bit about, and we've talked about exercise and travel. We've talked about both of those in the past. I'm not sure if we've touched on travel too much on this one, but so planning on...
Just go back to exercise again for a second. So although I always say with metabolic balance that we can reach and achieve our goals if they are weight-based without exercise, but exercise is a really important part of day-to-day life. And I just really wanted to touch on what exercise really means and how you can still incorporate this in your day-to-day. And this probably comes back to my past working as a PT, and there was an element in me at that stage that exercise means you've got to work really hard, you've got to come back sweating, you've got to be exhausted, you've got to be pushing yourself to your own limits for exercise, but that's not what it needs to be. Exercise needs to be movement and getting out. So today, for example, because we know this week we're not going to be able to get to our usual reformer Pilates, we got home a little bit earlier and we went for a walk. And I think we were walking for probably about half an hour. And it was hot, so normally we wouldn't walk in that heat. But just getting out and doing that walk is exercise.
As much as about mindfulness as well.
Also as well, housework, as much as I'm not really sure that's about mindfulness, but housework can also be exercise. I know myself when I'm in that mood that, okay, it's time to do the showers, it's time to do the floors, it's time to do everything. I kind of get onto a bit of autopilot and probably use as much energy doing that as I would if I went to a Pilates class and things like that. So it's really kind of incorporating movement into your day. Not only will your body love it, it actually helps, once metabolism's working, it helps to keep metabolism firing. But also, like I said, the mindfulness, the getting out of routine, just enjoying that feeling of just pushing yourself a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting because in a sort of another side of the practice, we're doing a lot with sports nutrition. and we're hooking up with these ultra marathoners and adventure races, and unbelievable how hard these people push their bodies in events that last for 24 hours plus. And so far, multiple of them that we've met don't have their nutrition sorted. And so they all talk about how they do these races with reflux, the belly's upset, vomiting, and you're just going, how how do you do that? Like, whereas, but if you bring that in even to everyday lives with people with ultra processed foods and not really understanding that, you can feel pretty crappy. Well, reflux is a thing, and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So pretty incredible. But yeah, exercise, in terms of moderate exercise, I think there's so many good benefits.
Yeah, definitely.
On that. Yep. And we're going to touch on travel for a little bit. You're still going to touch on that?
Yep.
In terms of, so got some friends that went over to Vietnam. That kind of reminded us of our Vietnamese trip in the last round. And Bia as well, who went and had a good chat with them about how they will, stick with things when they're over there. So we sort of talked a lot of restaurants and things like that. And Vietnam is very culturally different, but it's all about protein and salad over there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. So, like Scott said, they're friends that went, but also following the metabolic balance plan. And the first message I got from them was, I just ordered a drink and didn't realize it was going to be full of condensed milk.
And that's Vietnam for you.
So, the person who's there is actually very susceptible to dairy. There isn't any dairy on her MB plan. So in that moment, she actually chose to give it to her husband, and she ordered herself a frozen juice drink as well. So that was really kind of cool, that it had made her realize, like, going through the process with metabolic balance of actually working out what to actually order while she was away. But it was really about beforehand, when she messaged us to say, hey, I'm going away. What are your suggestions, and how do I stick as close as I can to my plan? And that really, again, came back to planning.
Yeah.
The first thing is, when you go away, to absolutely enjoy yourself. And there's going to be different foods that you're going to have that won't be on your plan, and that's okay. But also working out where you're going. The great thing, and it was funny, I actually said to her before she went, do you have TikTok? And she looked at me like I was crazy. I actually used TikTok to plan our Vietnam trip and the restaurants that I went to. I did get distracted by various other videos, but it was actually really good and it was actually our daughter that mentioned it to us when she moved to Melbourne, that she was actually finding out from TikTok the best places to go in Melbourne. So it was actually really easy, and it was a fun way to actually plan the trip beforehand, just searching for those restaurants, and then I'd find the restaurant and then I'd look at the menus. So I kind of had a bit of a plan in mind of knowing where we would go while we were away. And that was actually kind of fun as well, for seeking out these restaurants and things like that.
But you can do the same in Brisbane.
And you can do the same here, and even going to Sydney or Melbourne or different places that you go to, have a bit of fun with it. Look on Instagram. If you've got Instagram, look on Facebook, look on TikTok. I apologize for the amount of hours you will then waste looking at things that you didn't think you needed to know that you now know. But they're great ways to utilize that craziness of social media, which I actually dislike, in a positive way to do that planning.
Yeah. And then jumped onto the Google reviews and often had really, good results with that. Not sure if has anyone used Insta? Sarah, have you used Insta before to plan out your food destinations or anything like that?
Yeah, I often do, like if someone suggests something, or I often do go onto the page just to simply look at, what they have in the menu. Yeah, definitely always look at the menu before you go to see, like pre-planned. So you don't get there and you're like, oh my God, there's nothing here, then freak out. And then, yeah.
Does anybody else use TikTok?
Thought that would be
No.
the
I I haven't been game enough to get on because I've heard it's so addicting. So
Yeah.
It certainly is addictive, but I think probably the one thing I actually enjoyed about TikTok was the kittens, but the videos are really short.
Yeah.
So you kind of put in places to eat Vietnam and you just sort of scroll through, and the videos are only a few seconds each. So you can find so many places really quickly.
Yeah, it's quite
and they're quite up to date. So this isn't things that people have gone to 3 years ago. It's the day before or the day before. So it really kind of keeps it relevant with, and not, I'm definitely not telling everyone to get onto TikTok. I have just started an Inspire Wellness TikTok account. If anyone is interested and would like to follow it.
Might feature.
The videos are random. They probably come out once every 2 months because I haven't quite worked out how to create them yet. But it is really quite fun with that planning.
Might have to feature the Zen garden omelette.
Yep.
Yeah. And whatever, Jane, whatever your recipe was, I think that we might be
yes,
caught up and cooking that.
Spice cabbage and apple.
Yeah. No, that sounds incredible.
Awesome. That sounds awesome. So that's a wrap, I believe.
Has anyone got any questions? Anything you want us to answer?
Don't know. I haven't been watching the app. If anyone's been on that, you've been watching that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, I've got a challenge for the week. I think I did this part the way through the last Vitality, and I will put this into the app. And that is to experiment with a food that is on your plan that you are not used to having, have not had, or don't even know what it is.
And past enviers, I suppose, will remember that challenge from last time. So yeah, to give some tips out there, I guess there's something called kohlrabi if you've never experimented with that before. Celeriac is probably the ugliest vegetable on the planet, but tastes really tasty. And usually the pulses and lentils feature quite heavily. A lot of people don't normally have them incorporated in their day. And
I think when we're younger, we develop our taste buds very early on in the first, literally, gosh, I think it's weeks that we develop our taste buds. Then we eat within our environment, so we're fed food. So our tastes develop through that time to foods that we're familiar with. And still quite often, we will always go back and gravitate to the foods that we know, the ones we know how to cook.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time you don't know what you don't know. There may be a food that's hiding in your plan that you'll try that. I think the last time it was Choco. I think Choco had a big, big resurgence with foods through that. Like Scott said, ours was kohlrabi and celeriac. I will have to have a look at my plan and see if there's something else on there. Even sauerkraut. I used to say I didn't like sauerkraut, and it wasn't until our son's partner cooked celeriac with cumin seeds, not celeriac, sauerkraut, sorry, with cumin seeds, that I realized how much I actually enjoyed it. I don't like cold sauerkraut, but cooked sauerkraut was really lovely. So,
and check out the AR meal plans that come your way. Usually it does do a fairly broad selection of your ingredients on your MB plan. So check out the meal planner and see if there's any in there that make you laugh, because some of them are hilarious the way that it wants you to cook, and so I found out that now it likes to rhyme. So it would be good to see if any of the AR meal plans feature, and certainly take the pics and send them through and share with everyone.
Amazing.
Cool. That's us. Thanks everyone for dropping on. We've got a pretty good attendance there, and thanks Sarah and everyone else, and thanks Jane for those questions and topic of pasta. Really good. So otherwise, I'm going forward this week and refocus.
Yep, cool.
So let's see how I go. All right guys,
have an amazing evening everyone.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.